The cha-ching in question is the sign of people's money disappearing that they didn't know was going to be disappearing from their bank accounts, because we are talking today in Consumer Talk about a subscription offer that it appears nobody really knew they were signing up for, but that was imposed on them after they booked flight tickets. And Wendy Knowler is with us via Zoom this afternoon to unpack the story of what happened to not one but multiple CapeTalk listeners, and that list continues to grow as the show continues with more WhatsApps coming through. So we'll be talking about eDreams, the third-party travel booking platform, and particularly in the context of these latest complaints. If it's happened to you, if you want to share advice on what worked for you in terms of extricating yourself from the unwanted subscription, or if you want to ask a question, you're very welcome to send a WhatsApp to 072 567 1567. Wendy, great to have you back with us, even if it must be via Zoom. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Pippa.
When I heard that you wanted to talk about eDreams today, it rang a bell straight away, and I went back to my show notes, and sure enough, the first thing I found was a story from back in 2018 about a customer who had a very, very expensive, terrible experience around a cancelled flight instruction that wasn't actioned with terrible consequences. And then I found more notes taking us back to the COVID period, Wendy, around cancellations and customers who were left stranded who just could not reach anybody to help them with their issues. This platform has had its share of customer service issues over the years, but the one today is a new issue. Certainly, as far as I'm concerned, I hadn't heard about it before. Tell us what brought them back onto your radar, Wendy.
Okay, sure. I actually noticed that I had 2 complaints about the same thing in a week, and then I did that thing where I did an inbox search, because I don't, shamefully, I don't even see all the emails I get, let alone read and act on them.
Yeah.
And then I just saw a pile, and I thought, oh my goodness, we need to talk about this. So essentially, what people did was that they went onto a site to find a fare comparison site to try and find themselves a cheap flight. Don't we all want that? And they landed up on eDreams, clicked on what looked like a really good fare, the best fare on the route that they were after. We're talking domestic routes, typically FlySafair, SAA flights, and they didn't realize in accepting that discounted fare, which they were able to use, by the way, that isn't the issue, but they had committed to a subscription of 229 Rand or 299, somewhere between the two, a month, and locked in for a year, if you don't mind. And then I started researching, and I discovered that this is not a phenomenon that is restricted to South Africa only. And interestingly, you shared with me this morning, we did a promo for this discussion, and it landed just in time for our listener, Michelle Seymour, who emailed you to say, I just wanted to thank you and Wendy for recording aired this morning regarding an eDreams subscription. If I hadn't heard it, I wouldn't have checked to see if I'd been subscribed. Fortunately, I was able to contact them and had the subscription cancelled before my account was debited. Very grateful.
Okay, well, she was luckier than Claire, who's messaged. She says, a year ago, I booked an air ticket through eDreams, and a few months later noticed an amount of around 220 was being deducted every month. I thought, I never signed up for that. Tried to unsubscribe, but it was not an option. I called the number and chose the unsubscribe option, was on hold for ages, got nowhere, and eventually called my bank, who said they could not stop it, and my best option was to cancel my card. The guy at the bank said eDreams had popped up a number of times with the same problem. The bank gave me the good advice to create virtual cards and only use virtual cards when paying online, as it's easy to cancel a virtual card and then create a new one if there are unapproved deductions going off. But listen to this. Even after cancelling my physical card and getting a new one, it stopped the deductions for a while, but they have started deductions again from my new card. So I'm eager to hear how to stop this. And that is from Claire in Sea Point, listening with great interest amongst other listeners in the same boat. Wendy, this what we're talking about here is what eDreams calls its Prime membership. Do you want to just explain the context for us here?
Okay, so it would seem, and I'll cut to the chase right now and say I did send a list of many questions to the eDreams number that I could find online, and I haven't had a response. So I'll be happy to share it when we get it. But so far I don't have it. But it would seem that that eDreams regards accepting the fare, that discounted fare, as a subscription. I asked the company to please send me screenshots of how this happened and how, most importantly, where the disclosure was.
Yeah.
Because we've got a whole lot of people saying they didn't realize. So at best, it's obtuse. It's not easy for people to see that by clicking on accepting the lower fare, they are also accepting a subscription of 230 odd rand a month. So at best, as I say, it's not being properly disclosed, which would be a contravention of our Consumer Protection Act, which is very, very big on disclosure. So some of the case studies, Antoinette Naidu of Queensborough and Durban said she, as I've said, doesn't recall any clear indication that her booking carried a monthly 229 Rand fee. She can't find a straightforward way out of it. It was a once-off flight in her case. Jenny McEwen says she accepted a 15-day trial. So this is new. I don't know where that popped up. She went looking for the cancel button, didn't find it, thought she would come back to it and never did. She's being charged $299 a month. She said she cancelled the same day, was told she was liable for the full 12 months up until May of 2027.
Sure.
She says she flies only every few years, so she will end up paying more for that membership than she did for the ticket.
Ouch.
Cedric Daniels bought 7 Joburg to Cape Town tickets in February and found a 229 Rand debit on his credit card. He says calls and emails to eDreams went unanswered and that he, like the others, is being held in a contract for a full year with what he says is no way to dispute it. Frances Cowan told me she spent hours on hold. She found a phone number, a Cape Town landline number. She eventually got through, and then she got an email confirming that the subscription was cancelled, but the deductions carried on for 6 months. Oof. She cancelled her credit card to stop them. Then she booked another ticket on a new credit card, taking great care to tick nothing, but the deduction started on the new card.
Okay, so there's a recurring theme here, Wendy, in short. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
And in fact, we've got 2 more case studies to share with you in person. Let me start with the one who is holding on the line patiently to chat to us, because the same thing happened to Trevor Botsis, who's joining us by phone this afternoon. And Trevor, thanks for being willing to chat to us. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
I gather this similar story. You were on a flight comparison site and spotted the offer from eDreams. Tell us briefly what happened there next.
Correct. I was booking a flight for my wife to fly to Johannesburg, return. And as I say, I was on cheap flights. And their little advert pops up on the right corner, top right-hand corner, saying compare versus cheap flights. So you click on it logically, and of course it comes up. You go through the whole process. And I did confirm a flight. And then, of course, only to discover, they said by clicking on the Prime you automatically assume a Prime subscription by clicking on that particular icon. And then they started deducting from my account. But when I queried it and complained, they said they had sent me an email explaining there was a free period apparently, and then, of course, what you have actually signed up for. I mean, we never signed up for anything. It's actually totally outrageous what they're doing. And
just to confirm, you never received any email or any communication that said to you, you are subscribing to this offer?
No, not at all. And all other flight booking companies give you an option to clearly to accept or reject certain add-ons by ticking a box. I mean, this company, they're a bunch of charlatans. It's shocking. It needs to be stopped. Yeah, so, at the end of the day, I was fortunate enough to cancel immediately, but they still managed to get one payment through 299 Rand. I then was forced to actually cancel my card. My card was the Investec Bank, and of course I cancelled it, and I haven't seen any other debits go through my account since then. I have a new card, obviously.
Okay.
So that's where we stand at this particular moment, but that's why I highlighted it. It's crazy. They've got to stop them.
Wendy, you had a question for Trevor.
So, your one worry was that when you cancelled, that might also impact your flight booking, but that wasn't the case. You had a nervous time up until you were able to check in 24 hours before online. But just to be absolutely crystal clear, you didn't click on anything, and when you engaged with eDreams about this, so there's a very interesting response that you got from their customer care team. Do you have it at hand, or shall I read it out for our listeners?
You can read it at hand. I've got it at hand just too.
Okay.
It just says, in accordance with our contract, we have collected the membership fee of R299 on the 30th of April 26. As per our policies, the subscription fee remains non-refundable. However, you will continue to have full access to exclusive Prime discounts and benefits for the duration of your membership year, and $299 will be collected monthly. And that was for a full year that we're going to, and then it automatically renews if you don't cancel. I mean, just like
it's and the interesting bit was our records show that your flight reservation was booked using a Prime discount. By selecting this discount, you subscribed to the eDreams Prime membership. So there, in their own words, is how it happened. And as you say, as far as you're aware and everybody else, there wasn't a pop-up or any kind of disclosure that by accepting this fee, you will automatically be enrolled as a member of Prime with a monthly subscription of X for 12 months minimum.
Nothing was explained in that form at all. It was just like booking a flight through bookings.com, for instance.
Yeah.
It was all exactly the same. No difference. No clicking on anything, not ticking any boxes, subscribing to anything, no.
Trevor, thank you for being willing to join us to clarify that. And Wendy, I mean, that is the same story that we've heard now from multiple people. And in fact, I think we can squeeze in one more who's with me in studio right now who had a similar experience, although in his case, I think had a little bit more luck getting out of it. And that is our very own Barry Murray, who's a producer at CapeTalk. And the minute Barry heard that we were talking about this, he reached out to say, hey, #MeToo. Barry, thanks for popping in.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Pippa.
What happened?
Well, literally that. So I must disclaim that I also used cheap flights to find a trip to Portugal, and the cheapest flight was through eDreams. So I clicked on it. It was made clear that discounted rate, that really good rate that I wanted, was a Prime discount rate. But they had also offered a free trial. And I am guilty that oftentimes I will, if I know there's a free trial, I'll subscribe to something and make dead sure that I cancel my trial before the billing period to get the benefit that I need. Because I simply don't buy enough flights to make it worth subscribing for a year.
Yeah.
So I did do that. And I did, what I'm trying to say is I knowingly knew that this was now a Prime membership, and I knew that I will cancel this before the billing period starts. Upon trying to cancel, as one of the case studies you mentioned here, doing that online was near impossible. So I jumped onto the phone with them. They've got a call center somewhere. I don't think it's here locally. And that's really the experience that shocked me, is that the call center agents are absolutely trained to sell you. So the moment you try to cancel with them on the phone, it was a 10-minute process of them convincing me why I shouldn't. And that was incredibly frustrating. Yeah. I told them I don't need this service. I thanks, but I'd like to cancel. And they said, well, are you aware that if you cancel, you're going to lose all of these benefits? Yes, I'm aware. I'd still like to cancel. Yes, but if you cancel... And so she went on and she went on and she went on. Eventually, I became less polite and more pushy and rude. And finally, they said, fine, we will cancel your Prime membership. But then also, so my connecting flight had been cancelled. And upon needing assistance with the flight that I had then purchased, that became difficult because having immediate service, or whatever they call it, not concierge, but having special attention requires a Prime membership. And because I had cancelled that membership, sorting out a flight that had been cancelled then became more of a task because I moved further down the queue because I was no longer a Prime member.
Yeah.
And so I was never billed because I made damn sure to cancel before the billing period started. But I think the thing that shocked me most was how hard they tried to sell me upon wanting to cancel. It was irritating, and there's more words.
So what is offered is, hey, you can try this risk-free because there's a 15-day free trial period and you can cancel at any time.
Yeah.
But actually cancelling at any time is easier said than done, is what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then so finally what did happen is after that connecting flight was cancelled and I struggled to kind of deal with them to fix that, I had a 15-hour layover that I didn't initially book. But anyways, we live.
Okay, you've lived to tell the tale, and at least you didn't lose too much money over it. Barry, thanks so much for popping in to share that with us, and appreciate your time this afternoon. All right, well, Wendy, Barry is the kind of consumer that you love, because he made a note in his diary that there was a free trial that ended in 15 days and he needed to cancel on day 13. That's the mistake many of us make, and that they take advantage of, that we forget we've signed up for the free trial.
Yes, and then if we do remember, it's not as, it's super easy to get in, not so super to get out. And it sounds like some people mention the 15-day trials, either don't, whether it's the ones that just didn't see it. I'm not 100% clear. This is why I'm wanting the company to send me screenshots and explain how that disclosure happens. But as I said, whatever it is, it's clearly not sufficient to be having this number of people saying, hey, I didn't know about it, I didn't mean to, it's not what I wanted. And bearing in mind that let's say it's 300 Rand a month, some with 230, some with 300, it's more than 3,500 Rand a year. It's a substantial amount of money,
and it's more than a local flight if you're smart about the way you book, so you end up paying a whole lot more in the long term than certainly what you've saved on that discount. Lucinda, another one, saying same story, they charged me the full annual subscription. Selwyn saying that's a different one, we'll get to that later in the open line section. Stephen, in fact I'll go to Stephen's question after the news, because I can see it is 2:30, so please keep your WhatsApps coming if you have follow-up questions on the eDreams story, and we'll just recap what it is that you've asked them and are hoping to get an answer about after we've heard the Eyewitness News headlines.
Consumer Talk
with Wendy Knowler.
You can join the conversation.
The conversation goes straight back to this question of people being subscribed to an eDreams discount offering that commits them to a year-long contract without realizing that is what they are doing, thinking that they are booking a well-priced flight, taking advantage of a discount, not realizing that in fact accepting that discount is subscribing them to a year-long commitment. And Wendy, while we were listening to the news, another 8 complainants through on the WhatsApp line. 8, including this voice note. Let's take a listen.
Hi, good day. My name is Abdul. I'm also the victim of eDreams, as I booked ticket in July, and then now I realized that they debited my account once in July and now in August again. So I already approached to my bank to stop the debit orders. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry that it's happened to you along with several others. Renee saying I was charged for a year about 2,800 Rand in total in my case. She said I sent emails asking to cancel. All I ever received back was an invoice. I contacted the bank and they said unfortunately it couldn't be refunded. Stephen is also asking what I don't understand is why do the banks refuse to block eDreams from charging your account? Would you like to respond, Wendy?
Well, I was listening to that last complaint. I thought, well, we have the protection of chargeback, which is offered by MasterCard and Visa via the issuing banks. And that's really there to protect us against paying for something that we don't get. It's slightly different, but I think the onus is on our banks, the dispute divisions, to go to the merchant, eDreams, via their bank and ask very clear questions for where is the proof of mandate. So how was this disclosed and how is the authorization given? Because this is clearly, as I've kept saying, I don't know the exact mechanism, and I have asked the company to explain it to me. But clearly there's a lack. There can't be this many people who are not paying sufficient attention. The disclosure is not good enough. And I think on that basis, the banks should certainly come to the party and get those subscriptions cancelled. If not, I would say that people should en masse be sending complaints to the National Consumer Commission so that they take this up. The more complaints they get, the more compelled they'll be to investigate this issue.
Yeah. Very interesting comment here from Bev, who said, I had the same experience. I had to get a new credit card. I did manage to get hold of someone who said because they were in India, our CPA didn't apply. That's not how it works, Wendy.
No, if you're doing business with South African consumers, the prevailing consumer protection laws apply. That's how it's supposed to work. But,
Okay.
this is the problem with being operating now in a global village where it's so easy. You don't even know half the time who you are contracting with. And I think it also begins with, and I'm chase a bargain like the next person, but always be on high alert when you're getting a special deal, especially online. Be on the lookout for the catch.
Yeah, and what the hidden T's and C's are. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Dee asking, if one decides to cancel after the free trial period is over, would you then be liable for those monthly installments?
No, you should be able to cancel at any time. That's what there should not be a 12-month lock-in.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. That's another thing that our CPA protects us from. So you should be able to cancel, this owner, well, you're now locked in for 12 months. It's definitely not okay. And would this be the time to talk about what's happening in other markets?
Yes, let's do that because it's not a South Africa alone issue, Wendy.
No. So in June, the Competition and Consumer Regulator in Australia, the ACCC, issued eDreams with 3 infringement notices, which the company paid and accepted a court-enforceable undertaking from it. So they were doing 2 things wrong, or found to be. eDreams was advertised a 15-day trial as free, as in $0, without making clear that not everybody qualified, and then charged the people who didn't qualify. And it advertised a monthly price for what was actually an annual subscription without showing the total 12-month costs. So eDreams admitted the conduct breached Australian consumer law, and under that undertaking, it must refund or credit consumers who signed up from the 1st of November 2021 onwards, and that were charged during a so-called free trial. Current members get it automatically. Former members, that's the refund. Former members have to cancel it via a form. On the 12th of March this year, Euro consumers, acting on behalf of more than 3,000 people who'd complained across Belgium, Spain, Italy, and Portugal, served eDreams with a cease and desist letter demanding that they stop pre-selecting subscriptions, stop the misleading price comparisons, and stop hiding the cancellation route, and gave them 30 days to come back with a plan to repay people. That organization, Euro Consumers, called eDreams practices deceptive and aggressive. And in the middle of all of that, on the 9th of April this year, eDreams, Odigio, announced that it was accelerating Prime's expansion in South Africa after more than a year of testing here. I've totally missed that announcement.
Yep.
Chief Executive Dana Dunn was quoted as saying the company was moving forward, not with assumptions, but with the absolute certainty of results, whatever that means. The statement also said South Africa is their first subscription footprint on the African continent and puts Prime at more than 7.8 million members worldwide.
I wonder what percentage of them actually knew that they were agreeing to becoming Prime members. That's the $1 million, or rather the 7.8 million question, Wendy. Okay,
Absolutely.
So Kenton just writing in saying, sure, I booked a flight to Joburg via eDreams in March. Thanks to this show, I have just noticed I have been charged 229 Rand a month since then. So Kenton, we can give you a lecture on checking your accounts more carefully every single month. But yeah, this is the risk, Wendy, is that it's a low enough amount that some people would not notice it automatically.
Yes.
Yes. So it's easy to miss.
Very much so, and imagine the cumulative sums from that. And if people don't know, they don't know to cancel, and it'll just roll on until one day something makes them notice, and then they've got the battle on their hands to try and cancel.
Yeah.
Which is not made easy, as we heard from Barry's experience.
And an interesting comment here from Peter. He says, on the eDreams issue, my bank advised me to block my card for international purchases, but now he's been charged multiple declined fees on the card. He says up to 6 times in a day. Surely if I block my card, I shouldn't get a declined fee. The other trick he says that eDreams uses is declining your transaction and asking you to book again, but every time the ticket is 50 Rand more than it was the previous time. That's Peter's experience.
No.
Ish.
Okay. That's just really not okay. So again, anytime you're being offered discounts on airfares, please be on super high alert. international travel, and domestic travel is really expensive. But yeah, and they're playing on our need to shave our costs as much as possible. But you're just tread very, very carefully.
So Pam asking which airline is involved. Pam, to be clear, this isn't a specific airline. It's a third-party travel site that offers deals on all kinds of airlines. So it's not that any one airline is involved here. It is the eDreams platform. And Wendy, when I looked back in my notes from 2018, at that point it was based in Spain. So I was interested to see Bev's comment about the person on the line saying, well, we're in India, the CPA doesn't apply here. Do you actually even know who or where they are at this point in time?
I don't. I'm suspecting the call center was in India.
Probably.
The person just said that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's most likely scenario. But I think Spain is probably on the money. But yeah, I would say as a very concrete warning is if you're clicking on if you're accepting a discounted fare, just have your be on a laptop or desktop ideally, and take screenshots every step of the way with your phone, so that you have really concrete proof of what was disclosed and what wasn't, should you contest it, and be very, very, very wary of free trials, because they have lots of horrible hooks attached, and even if you do manage to cancel, it's seldom a easy process. It's really not worth the trouble.
Okay. And if you are going to risk it, please make a note in your diary for 2 days before the end of the free trial period to initiate the cancellation. Do keep that in mind. We've also shared the advice about using a virtual card for online bookings, which makes it easier to protect yourself if something like this happens. And we'll keep you posted. So Wendy has sent a long list of questions to eDreams, which have not yet been responded to. Obviously, if they do get back to us, Wendy, we will share that feedback.
Of course.
Zuki is asking, is this matter on the NCC's radar? Shouldn't they be doing something to stop them? Well, your comment was to everybody who's complaining today that it's happened to them, please do alert the National Consumer Commission that it has happened to you. So that they can be aware of the accumulation of complaints and know that this is something they need to act upon. If more consumers make the effort to report it, then it creates more of a base for them to investigate from, Wendy.
Yeah, that is hugely important. Often I will take up an issue that I can see lighting up my inbox, and they say, oh, we've had 1 or 2 complaints, because I don't think people think to lodge a complaint there, but they do regulate the Consumer Protection Act, and the key to this is to bombard them, as happened with consumers in other parts of the world, bombard the regulator with your experiences, and that will serve as, I'm sure, motivation for them to get involved, investigate, take them to task, hopefully, and get that disclosure as it should be on their site.
Yeah. Well, I am smiling. Pierre has obviously been doing some conversating with AI, and he says this is what ChatGPT has to say. Booking flights with eDreams is generally not recommended because of hidden subscription fees and poor customer service. Pierre, thank you for getting ChatGPT to basically sum up the last 40 minutes of conversation and case studies.
I'll say goodbye now.
All right. Please don't go away, Wendy. We will say goodbye for a short ad break, and we'll be back with some open line questions.
Consumer Talk.
Open line.
Call 021 446 0567.
Yeah, okay. Before we take any open line questions, a few more comments and related topics going back to the eDreams saga. Yeah, Tracy's comment is eDreams, the cheapest fare but the most expensive experience. And that's echoed by Clinton Kenilworth saying, I was charged €100 by eDreams. It was a once-off charge, but my original domestic fare jumped from 3,000 Rand to 4,800 Rand as a result. And again, to your point, hidden fees, hidden subscriptions, not full, very clear consumer communication around what you are actually signing up for. Big red flags to be aware of. Janet asks an important question around how you do actually cancel debit orders, because in all of these cases, the banks have said, sorry, we can't stop the debit order. The only thing you can do is cancel the card. Janet says, I've been told only an attorney can cancel a debit order. She said, I've had many months trying to stop a debit order going off against my late husband's non-existent bank account, she writes. Wendy, any comment on the actual process for cancelling a debit order?
It is quite technical, and I don't have the notes in front of me, but the bank will sort of stop it on a once-off, but to stop it permanently, they would want that instruction to come from the vendor because you had an agreement with the vendor. So the easy way around that, I would say, is around the dispute, is to say there was no common cause, there was no agreement. I did not agree to this subscription. So you need to ask the vendor by the banks for that mandate. The word is the mandate. Where is the mandate for the ongoing subscription? And hopefully in that way get it cancelled.
Okay, and
but I do think we pay a lot in bank fees. I think you need to push and get your bank to be in your corner on this one.
Yeah. But Wendy, to your earlier point about taking screenshots, if the vendor's response in this case was to say, well, the customer clicked the box, you've then got the screenshot showing here is, at the moment of purchase, very clearly a photograph that the box was not ticked. They would probably turn around and argue you ticked it after you took the photo, I guess, but...
Or note the lack of disclosure. There's nothing here that says this now commits you to 230 Rand a month for 12 months. That would need to have been there as you click in order for it to be valid, because otherwise you're not making an informed decision.
Okay. The phrase that comes to mind, echoing Tracy's comment, is goedkoop is duurkoop in this case. Wendy, you're saving a little bit on the discount, but at a long-term cost, not just in the financial terms, but in terms of the headache of trying to get it all sorted out. Okay, let's have a look here. This is I think we can move on to open line in the remaining minutes. If anybody else has something to add to the eDreams conversation, you can keep those WhatsApps coming on 072 567 1567. Joe writing in to say, I bought a new RAV4 hybrid, which was marketed as coming standard with Apple CarPlay. When it was delivered, I was told I needed a connection, a kind of smart box, which they provided, but this switches off certain features on the car's dashboard, and the device hardly ever works properly to boot. I don't know how to get this resolved because the dealer just isn't interested, writes Joe. Any advice for Joe?
Well, that was mis-selling, because if you can prove that car was advertised with that feature, and he's not getting the feature, then he's clearly entitled to it, and shrugging on the part of the dealer is not an appropriate response. I would be very happy to take that up with Toyota, with Toyota South Africa, because it must affect a lot of people, and let's get their response to that one. I mean, I had a case recently. A woman bought a little SUV, I won't say the make, and everything, she loved it, everything was perfect, but the radio was just a lot of static. She just couldn't enjoy listening to the radio, and many people do. And long story short, I got involved, and I said, this isn't a minor thing for those of us who like to listen to the radio in our vehicles. Yeah. And it's just been fully replaced at their cost with an apology. So these issues are important. They may not be safety critical, but if they sold you the car and said, this is what you're going to get, and you don't get it, don't take no for an answer. They must sort it out.
Okay, so
and
Joe,
sooner the better.
Joe, if you'd like to, you're very welcome to do one of two things. You can either go onto Wendy's website, which is wendyknowler.co.za, and that is spelled Knowler. She knows a lot about consumer affairs. wendyknowler.co.za. There is a contact form on that website designed to extract from you all the information Wendy needs to follow up your complaint. It'll, in this case, be, when you purchased the vehicle, which dealership you bought it from, the sort of the history of your interaction with them, etc., and that will enable her to follow it up with them. The alternative is to send an email to consumer@knowler.co.za, consumer@knowler.co.za, and in your case, Joe, just put in the subject line CapeTalk RAV4 Apple CarPlay. Wendy can keep an eye out for it. She knows that there is a question coming through on that subject, and then hopefully take it up with Toyota and try and get that resolved for you. So either the website or the email. Please, to listeners, if you are going to use the email option, please do put the words CapeTalk in the subject line and just a couple of words to help us keep track of the nature of the complaint. In a case like this, the eDreams scenario we've been looking at, it makes it easier for Wendy to go and do a search of that inbox and immediately identify here are 10 complaints about eDreams. That she then knows there is a bigger story here that needs to be looked at. So it is so helpful if you can just identify which station it's intended for and a little bit about the nature of the issue. I can see we've got a couple of voice notes that have come in also on the eDreams subject, but I don't know that we're going to have time left to play any of them. So just to say, firstly, you're very welcome to share this podcast. I've got a few people saying, how do I share this information with friends who've been caught out? You can simply go onto the Prime Media Plus website or app after the show today. It will be loaded on my show's page, and you can gladly share the link from there to anybody who you feel needs to listen to this. More importantly, though, if you are somebody who uses these platforms, if you have made a purchase in the last year or so, go back and check your bank statements and check that you have not missed the fact that you are actually being charged for a monthly subscription that you didn't intend to sign up for. And if you are being charged, make sure you implement a cancellation so that it doesn't roll over into a second year and hook you in for a second 12 months worth of payments. So hopefully Wendy will look, judging by the number of WhatsApps we've received in the space of 1 hour, this is perhaps a bigger issue than we thought it was going into today's show. And let's hope that the message trickles out to everybody else who's clearly been impacted so that they know to act on it.
Absolutely. And please get the Consumer Commission involved.
National Consumer Commission, do log a complaint with them if it's happened to you. Wendy Knowler, keep well until we chat again in studio next week, Wednesday. Thanks as always for helping out our listeners.
Thanks, Pippa.